Hello, everyone. Today we'll explore plant landscapes in foreign classical gardens, focusing on Western classical gardens and Japanese classical gardens. Western classical gardens, influenced by ancient Egypt and Babylon, evolved through ancient Greece and Rome, matured during the Renaissance. This evolution led to the emergence of formal gardens, represented by Italian Renaissance gardens and French classical gardens, as well as informal gardens exemplified by English landscape gardens. These diverse forms ultimately formed a rich and varied, yet unified, Western classical garden system. Let's first look at the plant landscape of ancient Egypt. Ancient Egyptian gardens included residential gardens, sacred gardens, and funerary gardens. Ancient Egypt, characterized by a hot, dry climate, with scarce water and limited vegetation, placed great importance on deities, water sources, and trees. Worshipping gods, collecting water, and planting trees became essential elements of garden creation, leading to the incorporation of pools, pavilions, and pergolas. Due to the scarcity of natural forests and the inability to access water easily, channeling water became a crucial task, giving ancient Egyptian gardens a distinctly artificial feel, often featuring symmetrical and orderly layouts. Common tree species included date palms, palm trees, fig trees, pomegranates, black locusts, and multiflora roses. Egyptian nobility built luxurious private gardens. Although many of these have not survived, we can glimpse them through ancient Egyptian tomb paintings. For example, the painting depicts the layout of a nobleman's garden, showing a clear formal arrangement. Analyzing this paint, where is the garden located? It requires a significant amount of water for irrigation. So many ancient Egyptian gardens were situated near rivers and enclosed by thick high walls for protection and insulation. Water was drawn from the river to fill the 4 rectangular pools in the garden, where aquatic plants were grown. In the image, what are the green blocks? They are Egyptian figs and palms planted in rows. At the center of the garden is a grape arbor, with pavilions shaded by fig trees and locust trees in front of the residence. Ancient Babylon emerged on the Mesopotamian plain, where the favorable geographic conditions contributed to the development of gardens in this region. The types of gardens in ancient Babylon included hunting parks, sacred gardens, and palace gardens. Hunting parks were similar to the early Chinese garden form known as you. These parks included primitive forests, planted with pomegranates, grapes, and other plants, and were home to various animals. Water was channeled into the hunting parks to create reservoirs for the animals. The most iconic garden in ancient Babylon was the Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The hanging gardens were not literally suspended in the air, but were composed of tiered platforms stacked in a pyramid shape. These platforms were covered with soil for planting trees, flowers, and shrubs, creating lush, layered plant communities. Spacious arcades and dense vegetation provided ventilation and shade. The design and construction of the hanging gardens have had a profound influence on modern rooftop garden design. To this day, we continue to design and build rooftop gardens on urban structures based on their principles. Ancient Greece, the cradle of European civilization, had a variety of garden types. Greek gardens can be categorized into palace gardens, residential gardens, and public gardens. Public gardens in ancient Greece included sacred groves, sports arenas, and philosophical academies. The earliest form of Greek gardens was the vegetable and fruit garden, According to Homer's epics, Greek gardens were systematically planted with numerous fruit trees, such as apples, grapes, pomegranates, and figs. By the 5th century BC, Greeks had encountered Persian garden art and blended the styles of the two cultures. Vegetable and fruit gardens evolved into decorative courtyards known as peristyle gardens, which were surrounded by colonnades. These gardens featured fountains, sculptures, and neatly planted cypress trees, oleanders, Bengal roses, and poppies, forming elaborate flower beds. Ancient Greek gardens extensively used floral materials, particularly multiflora roses, which were widely applied in garden landscaping, interior decoration, and as cut flowers. The Greeks also placed significant emphasis on public garden greening, with plants being commonly found around temples, arenas, and squares. It is worth mentioning that, following the advice of the famous Athenian statesman Cimon, plane trees were planted as street trees in Athens. This is recorded as the earliest instance of street trees in Europe. Initially, ancient Roman gardens focused on production, planting fruit trees, vegetables, and herbs. Later, they inherited the garden art of ancient Greece and Egypt and the layout characteristics of West Asian gardens, developing into unique villa gardens. Roman villa gardens were often located on hillsides and coastlines, utilizing natural terrain for scenic views. The layouts were formal, featuring arbors, flower terraces, flower beds, rose gardens, and plant labyrinths. Plant landscapes in Italian classical gardens. Italy, situated on the Mediterranean Apennine Peninsula, is surrounded by the sea on the east, south, and west, with the Alps to the north. Unique geographical conditions and climate create Italy's distinct garden form, the terraced garden. Terraced gardens in Italy achieved high levels of excellence in terrain management, plant pruning, and water features. Notable works emerged continuously, such as the Medici Villa in Fiesole from the early Renaissance, the Estens Villa during the Baroque period, and the Garzoni Villa in the later period, all showcasing the intelligence and skill of the garden creators. Italian terraced gardens predominantly used evergreen plants, coordinating different shades of green to create a harmonious visual effect. They avoided bright flowers and did not seek seasonal changes in plant landscapes, resulting in a unified, tranquil green aesthetic. Plant pruning and shaping were highly valued, evolving from simple geometric shapes like squares and cones to the complex and intricate designs of the Baroque period. The maze at the Villa Pisani in Stilla, near Venice, was designed in 1720. It is one of the most famous and best preserved mazes in Europe. Legend has it that Napoleon got lost in this maze around 1807. Plant landscapes in French classical gardens. In the latter half of the 17th century, France adapted the garden art inherited from Italy, developing the French classical garden style. French gardens are characterized by symmetrical geometric layouts, forming a patterned plan. The garden style of André Le Nôtre optimized the essence of classicism, solemnity, and elegance. Gardens were arranged using geometric grids, with clear axes, organized layouts, orderly structures, and distinct hierarchies, symbolizing French classical gardens and influencing all of Europe. Although both feature geometric patterns, French gardens have a more complex and rich plant landscape compared to Italian gardens, with a grander presence. Main plant landscape types in French gardens. Bosquets. Bosquets often use deciduous dense woods as a backdrop, blending formal plant landscapes with natural forests. Parterres. Parterres often utilize boxwoods or yew to create intricate patterns, accentuated by shaped evergreen plants. These rich, exquisite parterres serve as the main ornamental features in gardens. Flower beds. Brightly colored flowers are arranged in patterns, complemented by large lawns and dense groves to highlight the luxurious flower beds. Among the various types, the embroidery flower bed is the most classic, resembling embroidery on the earth. Hedges. Hedges are planted along the edges of flower beds and bosquets, with width of 0.5 to 0.6 meters and heights ranging from 1 to 10 meters. Commonly used plants include European boxwood, U and beach. Plant landscapes in British classical gardens. Britain's maritime climate, with its undulating terrain, numerous rivers, and sparse forests, predominantly featuring pastoral landscapes, greatly influenced the distinctive characteristics of British garden landscapes. In the first half of the 18th century, after the British bourgeoisie firmly took control of the government, they abandoned the French classical garden style, developing a new, almost naturalistic, back-to-nature garden style, known as the landscape garden. This led to the creation of numerous landscape gardens, such as Towerhead, which exemplify the essence of British landscape gardens, nature. In the mid-18th century, William Chambers, a British royal architect who had traveled to China twice, wrote extensively about Chinese gardens. In his design of Kew Gardens, he was the first to incorporate Chinese-style techniques, creating a hybrid style known as Anglo-Chinese gardens, which became quite popular in Europe for a time. Natural landscape gardens are characterized by open, expansive lawns that create a sense of space. Plants are grouped, clustered, and planted singly to form focal points within the landscape. The use of open woodlands, lawns, and flowering shrubs is extensive, with plantings perfectly integrated with changes in topography. Having explored the plant configurations of Western classical gardens, let's shift our focus to the plant configurations of Japanese classical gardens. Japanese garden plant design has the following characteristics. 1. Nature-inspired planting arrangement. Japanese gardens are designed to mimic natural landscapes. The planting design, both in plan and elevation, is based on asymmetrical triangular compositions. Trees planted in this arrangement complement each other's branch patterns and colors, creating a picturesque effect. 2. Plant pruning and shaping. In Zen gardens, low stone landscapes serve as visual focal points. Without pruning, plants would quickly grow and obscure these stone features. Japanese garden plant pruning can be classified into several types. First, pruning based on artistic principles. Using the concept of distant trees without shape from art theory to enhance depth. Second, water-themed pruning. Background trees pruned into wave shapes. Midground trees into boat or island shapes. Third, round-headed pruning in temple gardens. 3. Emphasis on evergreen plants and seasonal changes. Evergreen trees dominate Japanese classical gardens, maintaining the garden's appearance year-round and providing a natural backdrop for colorful flowering and foliage plants. In Japanese classical gardens, evergreens, rocks, and water features are considered the primary garden materials. 4. Importance of moss plants. Moss garden landscaping primarily involves skillful terrain management, water feature planning, and plant arrangement. Various types of mosses are meticulously selected to create suitable growth environments and rich moss landscapes. The moss garden is one of the earliest forms of moss landscaping, often associated with temples. In Japan's famous Kare Sansui dry landscape gardens, moss is commonly used alongside sand and stones to create an ancient, serene atmosphere. In this lesson, we explored the plant configurations of foreign classical gardens and Japanese classical gardens. The art of plant landscaping in classical gardens is a result of long-term cultural and artistic development, representing both the material and spiritual wealth of humanity and a natural cultural heritage. We should absorb their essence and apply it flexibly in modern garden plant design. For homework, please consider this question. Both the English landscape garden and the Chinese natural landscape garden are naturalistic in style. But how do they differ? Feel free to share your thoughts in the discussion area after class. That concludes today's lesson. Thank you for listening.